Beautiful pattern papers can replace coloring when using the paper piecing technique. Today on Stamp TV, we're going to step it up a notch by paper piecing outside of the lines. Let me show you the tools and products you're going to need to do this technique. First, you're going to need some rubber stamps, and I'm using a couple of the rubber stamps from the A Year of Flowers stamp set. And then I also have a small greeting from Stenciled Spring. You're going to need some frame dies, and I'm using the Spellbinders Classic Ovals in the large size, and then I'm using the Spellbinders Lacy Ovals die. I've got two different papers here. I've got the Gina Designs heavy base weight 120-pound white cardstock. You can also use the layering cardstock for this if you'd like. I also have some of the black onyx cardstock. Then you need a good ink pad, and I'm using the Memento Tuxedo Black because I'm going to do a little bit of coloring, and I've chosen to use the YG97 Spanish Olive Copic marker. You're also going to need a quickie glue pen and some pattern paper, and I'm using one of the patterns from the new Sundance collection by Gina Designs. This is one of our 6x6 paper packs, and when you see my finished card project, you'll see another piece from that same collection and how nicely they work together. You're also going to need some scissors, and I'm using the Cutter Bee scissors, and then to add a little embellishment, I'm going to use a glue dot, a little bit of ribbon, and the Bow Easy. So to begin, you're going to start by creating a focal image. And I'm going to do that using this Daylily image from A Year of Flowers and one of the stems from that same stamp set. So I'm going to stamp one like that, one like this, and then the last one I'm going to stagger just down here like that. Then I'm going to add my stems. Now normally when you're doing this type of work, you need to actually create a mask so that you're not stamping over images that are already there. But because we're using paper piecing, you can do this right on top of the flower, and when it's all done, you won't see where the images overlap. So I'm going to start by adding a stem to this flower, like that. Then I'm going to add one down here. And then my last one, I'm going to flip the stem over, and I'm going to stamp one right here. There. Okay, so my next step is going to be to color the stems in, and I'm going to use the YG97 Spanish Olive, and I'm not doing any fancy shading technique. I just want to get the stems green, and you can see how I'm just coloring right over that flower there, and that's just fine to do. My next step is going to be to cut this out using this oval frame. Now what I want to do here is I want to cut it so that the stems extend past the oval, and also I'm cutting out some of the flowers as well. So I'm not using an oval that all of this focal image is going to fit into. So I'm going to cut just like that. I'm going to use the Cuttlebug for this. Start with an A plate and a B plate, and then once again I'm going to line up my image exactly the way I want it, like that. And then on top I'm going to put the C plate, and that's for cut. C is for cut. It's a great way to remember it, and I'm going to run that through. I'm going to flip that over and emboss it. So I need the rubber mat. I need the B plate. Think of B for emboss. And then a little piece of chipboard just to tighten things up a little bit. So that creates a little embossed rim around the outside of that flower, those flowers. Okay. Then I'm also going to cut, using the black cardstock, I'm going to cut a lacy oval out for my background, my back layer of my focal image. Let's punch that out. Sometimes they get a little bit stuck, but because they're open, you can just push right through and get it out. There we go. And that one. So there is my lacy oval. Now, I'm going to attach these two pieces together just using a little bit of adhesive. And when you do cut these more delicate dies out, sometimes there's little frays and shreds hanging off of everything. Just kind of run your finger over them and they'll all disappear and you won't see those anymore. And then I'm going to line those two up like that. Okay. There. Now my next step is to actually paper piece the flowers. So I'm going to create my flowers on this beautiful piece of Sundance pattern paper, and I'm going to stamp them with Memento ink. Now this you can stamp with any ink you want. As long as it's a fast drying ink, it won't be a problem. And I like to use just small scraps of pattern paper when I'm doing this. Use the main part for a background, and then whatever's left over you can use for paper piecing. And we have 3. Now using my cutter bee scissors, I'm going to cut these apart, and I'm going to trim each one out separately. Now that I've cut all 3 images out, I'm going to lay them on top just to make sure they fit perfectly, and you can see that they do. And now I'm going to use the Quickie glue pen and glue these right onto these flowers. This is why it's okay if your stems overlapped on those petals, because you're not going to see any of these petals. Now if you've never used a Quickie glue pen before, it's a great tool. It's just like writing with a ballpoint pen, except a very thin flow of glue comes out. And it's great for this fine detail work where you just want glue in certain spots. I have a little trouble using tape for paper piecing. And you can see now my images are extending outside of the frame. You'll really see it on this one. I'll use this nice bold one here. And now you can see why I'm gluing on the white part and not on the flower part, because when the flowers extend outside, you kind of just want those pieces to be free-flowing and not sticky on the back. And each one you do is going to come out a little bit different, especially when you're doing this kind of two-step kind of stamping where you're stamping flowers and then adding stems and leaves. Each arrangement's going to look a little bit different. So make sure you get the arrangement exactly the way you want it before you start the paper piecing process. And there is my final flower. Now if you have any little areas that you want to cover, you can create a bow. And for this one I might use a larger bow. If you've never used the Bow Easy before, it's a very simple tool to use. You just need a piece of ribbon, and you're going to wrap that ribbon. I'm going to use the smaller part here. So if I wanted a big bow, I would use this whole thing and use this as the center piece. If I want a smaller bow, I'm just going to use these two. So I'm just going to do a single loop bow. And what you're going to do is you're going to hold your ribbon and just go around one time and hold everything nice and tight with your thumb. And then you're going to feed the free end through that little hole, like that. And grab it on the other side. And once you've done that, just straighten it out so it's nice and straight, like that. And then you're going to slip the other end of the ribbon, the tail, through that loop. And then make sure it goes up through that center between them and pull nice and tight. And then there's your cute little bow. You pull that off and you trim the tails, and you can put that wherever you want. So in this case, you might want to cover that little excess area there that kind of stamped over. You see that little piece that you probably wouldn't want if you used a Stamp-A-Majig, you wouldn't have had that. I wouldn't have had that. But if you get something like that, just cover it up with a bow. And it looks so cute, like that. And the way to apply a bow is just trim off these little edges, and then grab a glue dot. A glue dot is a great way to do this. One little glue dot will do it. It'll hold the bow on nice and tight. You can see I have that little glue dot there, and I'm going to just stick it to the back of the bow, press it on there, and pull away the paper. And then you just put that bow wherever you want it, just like that. You can see, isn't that cute? Now let me show you my finished card project that I did using this technique. Here's my finished card project, and I used the little hello stamp from the stenciled spring that I told you about, so you would know all of the tools and products that are used on this card. This background paper is from the Sundance 6x6 pattern paper pack by Gina Designs, along with this pattern paper. And all I did was finish up my focal image, add my bow, and then I popped these up, this whole panel up onto the card using 1/2-inch pop dots. So if you look on the side, you can see it's sticking up from the card, and you can see the pop dots in there. And that's how I got more volume on the front of my card, a little bit more depth and interest. And then you can stamp whatever you want inside, and you have a beautiful little card that will brighten somebody's day. Paper piecing outside of the lines allows you to create a bolder look using larger focal images while still using beautiful frames.